Today, I find this day as a very important day because this particular campus, though we have seen many people writing and talking about caste in higher education in a different ways, but in a serious manner like this is, I believe, for the first time openly, caste is getting discussed in a JNU campus and in higher education particularly. So, to begin with, I would like to quote Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. Once he is giving a very thought-provoking statement. He says, it might have been thought that the principle of equal justice would strike a death blow to the established order. As a matter of fact, far from suffering any damage, the established order has continued to operate. It might be asked why the principle of equal justice has failed to have its effect. The answer to this is simple. To enunciate the principle of justice, even we can say social justice, is one thing. To make it effective is another thing. Then I would like to say that when we think about this statement in a serious manner, the question goes to all of us, those who claim to be progressive, liberal and seculars as well as Ambedkarite. The question doesn't go to the Andhbhakt of BJP, RSS, because they are already having one particular mindset which they don't want to come out of it, including the SC/ST, OBCs in RSS, BJP and some other right-wing forces. But this question goes to all of us, that what is that we have done to ensure the principle of social justice or equal justice to all. So in this context, when we speak about HCU, the very first thing, when I went to HCU and I had a conversation with some of the students, there is a very basic question they are asking, that when Appa Rao was, he was supposed to be arrested under SC/ST PO Act for killing Rohit Vemula, when he came back with his task plans with the help of ABVP students to join the university again from his leave, why there was no voices from all the professors, not just one or two? If we say that we believe in the principle of justice, why the professors, the non-teaching staff and the many other people in the university did not speak about this, that Appa Rao should be arrested first because there is a charges on Appa Rao under SC/ST PO Act. This is happening precisely because if we connect it to the other side, to the larger system of discrimination in higher education, in the appointments of professors, associate professors, assistant professors, as well as non-teaching staff, we can connect this both. There is this paper by Professor Vivek Kumar where he talks about discrimination in higher education, and he connects this with not having faculties coming from a SC/ST minority and OBC background. And in this context, he gives the data, which is a very, very important data to consider. At one point, he says, out of 46 central universities in India and one open university, there is only one ST vice-chancellor. We need to ask this question, why it is so. In the same context, when we try to understand the situation in HCU, there are many points, but there is one point that there is one particular professor who have digged wall in front of his house, the quarters which he has received from the university. He has digged the wall to protect his purity. These kind of mindset, our professors, our civil society organizations, and the people who are continuously associated with universities never ask. When we ask this question inside the student movements also, whenever the organizations which particularly talk about the discrimination based on caste, the violation of rights based on the caste, those organizations who raise such issues have been branded as so-called progressive individuals and organizations also as casteist organization. We need to remember that Rohit Vemula was also branded as a casteist person. And not just Rohit, many activists, student activists who talk in the line of Ambedkar, Kanshiram, Phule, this particular ideology, many people think that they don't talk about caste as a structural issue, but they talk only against upper caste people. We need to understand that the people who are talking anti-caste lines, anti-caste voices, they're not targeting the upper caste individuals, but they're targeting the caste as a practice that is very inbuilt in this society, in universities also. The next point, when we try to understand the issues which is going on in HCU, they have been conducting Eklavya Speaks series. And their students themselves are coming up and stating the way they are facing discrimination from their professors, from their guides as well. There are instances where many professors who are like guide, they don't give time to students coming from SC/ST and minority backgrounds, OBC backgrounds. Other than that, the women, basically, those who come from so-called, like, quote-unquote reserved category students, women basically, institutions like Delhi University and basically the Scout Belt universities, they use the word kote se aaye ho ya kote se aaye ho. We need to understand what would be the impact of such statements on students coming from these universities. And to tackle such kind of statements, to tackle such kind of institutional harassment, we are failing to have a mechanism. We have had Turat Committee recommendations. Now there is a talk about Rohit Act. We are not sure when it will happen. But even if it happens, we need to understand, until and unless there is no mechanism, there is no willingness to ensure the social justice, there is no willingness to ensure the equal justice, these mechanisms will also not work. Other than that, there is one very important article by Matthew Kuriakis on solidarity is not a dinner party. We need to understand that even in student movements, I don't consider ABVP as a student movement. It's agents of some particular right-wing forces. But those who claim ourselves as the student movements, are we discussing the issue of caste in a serious manner? We have, when there was Occupy UGC movement was going on, we were equally part of it. And we are proud that we have been part of it. We will always be part of the Janvadi movement, what we call. But at the same time, when we raise the question that it was a time when Rohit did not commit suicide, his institutional murder was, it did not happen at that time. It was before the 17 January incident. So when we raise this point that in HCU there are 5 students who have been socially boycotted by the institution itself. Social boycott in this so-called 67 years democracy, parliamentary democracy in 21st century is a serious question. But the students who claim to be progressive and part of progressive student organizations have used the words, and I still remember, because it is a very problematic statement and we coming from such backgrounds take it in a serious manner. Students have said from a progressive student organizations that, see, these kind of incidents will happen everywhere. The students from the particular university, if it's happening in HCU, the students from HCU should raise this issue. We should question this kind of mentality as well. If social boycott, if discrimination based on caste is happening, here in Delhi or whether in some remote area of some particular district in Maharashtra or Rajasthan or Hyderabad, we need to take these all issues in a serious manner. On the other side, when the attack on JNU started in the name of the so-called anti-national debate, that time also this question was raised that when it was ensured that Kanhaiya, Umar and Anirban, all of them are back on bail itself, but still we should continue with the struggle for Rohit Vemula. Even at that time, there are student representatives who have used the word by saying that caste is, it's not taken very important by media, by even policymakers, but whereas this particular attack on students in the name of nationalism is a very serious thing, and we should see that it should get continued, that the struggle for students who have been branded as anti-nationals. So we do understand that there is an importance to struggle against fascist government, fascist policies, but at the same time, caste, Brahminism has been working in this particular country for several years, and it is equally worst as fascism. So until and unless we understand that both caste and this religious fascism and fascist forces need to tackle in equal manner and in equal spirit, we will not be able to go ahead what we call in solidarity. In the name of solidarity, we should also not forget that people coming from different sections will speak differently, and the dominant, so-called dominant forces should not try to dominate the language of those coming from a different vernacular background, those coming from underprivileged backgrounds may not speak the way so-called dominant caste class student speaks, but that doesn't mean they don't have voices. So this is also an important question which is in HCU also has been raised. In the name of solidarity, we should not just appropriate the adults movement. That is the important point. And though there is a very less time, what I would like to say is that in JNU also we have seen in direct PhD admission in winter semester for the past 2 years, we have seen that the students coming from SC/ST OBC backgrounds have not got the legitimate representation. I mean, there is one data which says there are only 0 SC and ST students. There is no SC/ST student. OBC 1 student out of 64 or 70. I'm not sure with the number, but it is there. Other than that, when we take the issue of Viva Voce also, we see most of the students coming from marginalized backgrounds have given 0 mark. We need to question this. When you write a proposal and submit it during the admission process, that writing a proposal also takes time. Somebody has invested their time, their talent, their energy. So even for that particular thing, one should give a mark. You're giving a 0 mark to SC/ST OBC student on what grounds? Other than that, when we see the deprivation points debate, there are last year when the organization which I come from, Birsa Phule Ambedkar Students Association, we also contested. So we were doing campaigning and we saw when we talk about deprivation points for minority students, like Muslim, Christians and mainly Muslims, people coming from different sections, those who claim to be progressive, have also very notorious argument in that context. We need to understand, despite of having such a commission report, there are Muslim students who are not having enough representation in higher educations, the so-called higher learning institutions. So in all this context, to summarize what I when I was there in HCU, there are students who says that Rohit Act will come. In fact, right now nobody in HCU is forcefully talking about Rohit Act precisely because there are many things which have been not done. The arrest of Bandaru Dattatreya, arrest of Appa, and the way non-teaching staff support has been taken away. So there is the support which support mechanism is not there. People are not having enough support there in HCU. So by seeing all these things, one thing we want to emphasize again and again, that we will have Thorat Committee recommendations, we will have Rohit Act also. But until and unless this caste prejudice and under the umbrella of progressiveness, behind that curtain of progressiveness, the continuation of caste prejudice will happen. The principle of social justice will not be established even in so-called progressive institutions like HCU and JNU. Thank you, Jai Hind.
Thank you, Bhupali. It all depends on how the institutions also shaped over of a time. Okay, so जैसे बाहर है वैसा ही अंदर है. जैसे feudalism है, जैसे communal forces जो है, वैसे यहाँ अंदर भी है. So the institutions are becoming more feudalistic. Keeping all these things aside, you should see the nature of the vice chancellor in Madras University. He is like, it's a feudal don. Heads and, vice chancellors they come in such a way, once if you are head, for 25 years, 30 years you are head of the department. Imagine the plight of the students, especially the marginal students, those who come from marginal background. And it is like, the way the vice chancellor addresses the professors, it is so much so insulting. And students tell stories and stories about their behavior. The nature of mindset, casteist mindset, needs to be addressed. That is what Bhupali was hinting. Even though you might be progressive, but you are an upper caste, you need to change your mindset. That is where we need to seriously take caste as an important issue and debate in these higher education institutions. And now I request Professor Ratnam to we must give a big applause to both Ratnam and Tadaga. They are role models, so we must fight for them. So now I will request Ratnam to speak.
HCU के साथियों संघर्ष करो, हम तुम्हारे साथ हैं. HCU के साथियों संघर्ष करो, हम तुम्हारे साथ हैं. डॉक्टर रत्नम को जय भीम जोहार. जय भीम जोहार. Rama will speak later on. He speaks.
So you speak and then
Sorry, I just jumped like a paddle, Dawn, sorry. So it's like, let Rama speak, I'm extremely sorry for that.
ठीक है, पहले ही मिल गया सबसे पहले. First of all, on behalf of JNUSU, I wish revolutionary greetings to all my teachers from JNU, DU and HU for your support, for your solidarity in the past few days. When we were under attack before few days, some of us were arrested, some of us were charged with citizen charges, some of us were underground, some of us were witched by the police and the media. So at that time, it is our teachers who stood up with us, and they said that we don't worry, we are with you and we will lead the struggle. And literally they led the struggle and they showed the solidarity not only inside our campus or in our country, but internationally we got the support. And because of this, now the movement in JNU and HU, it has moved forward, and it is because of this solidarity by the teachers and students like this, that this movement is going forward. I will speak on the ongoing movement in HU and caste and higher education. But before that, I want to express some of the experience on these issues, because I was talking with my father a few days back and also yesterday as well, and he was asking some question to me regarding the recent incident in JNU and HU. And my father was like, he is not academically qualified, but he is socially and politically qualified. He does not understand the meaning of university, but he understands the meaning of college and academic institution. So he was talking with me over phone, and he said that, बेटा कि अभी कुछ दिन पहले मीडिया में इस बात को दिखाया गया था कि जो तुम्हारा कॉलेज है वो यूनिवर्सिटी नहीं बोलते हैं, वो बोलते हैं कि कॉलेज है तुम्हारा, क्योंकि जवाहरलाल नेहरू यूनिवर्सिटी नहीं बोलते, जवाहरलाल नेहरू कॉलेज में मेरा बेटा पढ़ता है। तो वो बोल रहे थे कि अभी कुछ दिन पहले मीडिया के थ्रू हम लोग को बताया गया कि तुम्हारा जो कॉलेज है वो तो देशद्रोहियों का गढ़ है, और रोहित का जो कॉलेज है उस पे भी देशद्रोही के लोग रहते हैं और ये एंटी नेशनल का गढ़ है। तो अभी हम लोग को ये खबर मिल रही है कि ये जो देशद्रोही का गढ़ एकेडमिक इंस्टीट्यूशन और रिसर्च में फर्स्ट आया हुआ है, टॉप किया हुआ है। तो ये मामला क्या है एक्चुअली? क्या जो देशद्रोही होते हैं वो पढ़ाई लिखाई में ज़्यादा आगे होते हैं, या फिर जो पढ़ाई लिखाई में आगे होते हैं उनको देशद्रोही बोला जाता है? ये सवाल था उनका। और दूसरा सवाल वो मुझको पूछे कि ये जो अभी डेटा आया हुआ है मानव MHRD की तरफ से, उस पर रिसर्च के लिए और इंस्टीट्यूशनल ऑटोनॉमी के लिए JNU को और HU को, जो माने रोहित का और तुम्हारा कॉलेज है, उसको टॉप करार दिया गया है। और कुछ बीजेपी के लोग बोल रहे हैं कि ये जो टॉप इंस्टीट्यूट हैं उनको बंद कर देना चाहिए। तो एक्चुअली मैंने ये सवाल होता है, क्या जो बेस्ट यूनिवर्सिटीज हैं उनको बंद करने का मतलब क्या है? तो मैंने बोला, उनको जवाब दिया मैंने कि अभी जो रैंकिंग आया हुआ है उसको ये कह लीजिए, वह रैंकिंग नहीं है, एक हिट लिस्ट है। उसमें जो पहले नंबर आएगा उससे पहले अटैक होगा और उसको पहले टारगेटिंग होगा। आप देख लीजिए, मैंने 3rd नंबर पे JNU है, उसके बाद HU है। पहला जो 2 नंबर इंस्टीट्यूट है वो इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ साइंस बेंगलोर है। दूसरे नंबर पे इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ केमिकल टेक्नोलॉजी जो इंस्टीट्यूट है मुंबई का, वो है। तो मैंने बोला ये लोग गलती से नंबरिंग किए हैं, पहला नाम तो IITM का होना चाहिए था, दूसरा FTI का होना चाहिए था, तीसरे में तो JNU और चौथे में तो HU है। तो ये हिस्ट्री इस तरह से बनाना चाहिए था। और देखिए किस तरह का मजाक किया गया है। माने एक जो क्राइटेरिया सेट किया गया HU को और JNU को चुनने के लिए, तो उस पे एक क्राइटेरिया है इंस्टीट्यूशनल ऑटोनॉमी और एकेडमिक जो फ्रीडम है और हमारा जो कैंपस डेमोक्रेसी है, उसके लिए ये लोग टॉप किए हैं JNU और HU। लेकिन मैं कल यही बात मीडिया वालों को बोल रहा था कि जो लोग आज ये रैंकिंग बनाए हैं, शायद बनाते बनाते ये भूल गए कि एक एकेडमिक ऑटोनॉमी होता क्या है और कैंपस डेमोक्रेसी होता क्या है। क्योंकि अगर ये उन लोगों को पता होता तो JNU को टॉप में नहीं रखते और HU को उसके बाद नहीं रखते। और ये बहुत कॉन्ट्राडिक्शन है। जो लोग कल हमारे एकेडमिक इंस्टीट्यूशन का जो ऑटोनॉमी है, कैंपस डेमोक्रेसी के ऊपर अटैक कर रहे थे, आज वही लोग हम लोग को सर्टिफिकेट देकर बोल रहे हैं कि तुम लोग टॉप किए हुए हो। और इस बात के लिए मैं JNU का जो स्टूडेंट कम्युनिटी है, टीचर कम्युनिटी, इंक्लूडिंग कर्मचारी स्टाफ, उनको मैं धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूं और बधाई देना चाहता हूं कि ये जो कैंपस डेमोक्रेसी है, इसको बचाने की लड़ाई आप लोग लड़े हैं और आज इसी की वजह से जेएनयू का नाम हमेशा से आगे रहता आया हुआ है और आज भी रहा है। और मैं बोलूँगा, मैंने जो टॉपिक है आज का उस पर कुछ बातें बोल करके मैं अपनी बात खत्म करूँगा। जब हम लोग कास्ट एंड हायर एजुकेशन की बात करते हैं तो हायर एजुकेशन का जब बात आता है तो उस पर इंस्टीट्यूशन का सवाल आता है। जब हम लोग इंस्टीट्यूशन की बात करते हैं तो उस पर एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन का बात आता है। जब हम लोग एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन की बात करते हैं तो उस पर जो एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव हेड हैं उनका बात आता है। जब हम लोग एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव हेड की बात करते हैं तो वाइस चांसलर का रोल भी उस पर आता है। और जब हम लोग वाइस चांसलर की बात करते हैं तो एक ऐसा भी नाम आता है जो यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ हैदराबाद पे बैठे हुए हैं अप्पा राव जी का, तो उनका भी हम लोग को नाम आता है। क्योंकि कास्ट डिस्क्रिमिनेशन जो होता है इंस्टीट्यूशन और एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन मिलके दोनों का माने रोल रहता है उस पे। आप लोग देख लीजिए, हो सकता है हम लोग को लगे कि कास्ट और हायर एजुकेशन दो सेपरेट वर्ड हैं, निश्चित रूप से सेपरेट वर्ड है और उसका मीनिंग अलग अलग है, लेकिन इन दोनों के बीच में बहुत सारा लिंक्स है जो कि हम लोग एक्सपीरियंस किए हैं। ऐसा नहीं कि जो कास्ट होता है वो आपको बोल देना है कि तुम दलित कम्युनिटी से आए हो या फिर तुम माइनॉरिटी कम्युनिटी से आए हो या फिर तुम आदिवासी कम्युनिटी से आए हो। कास्ट डिस्क्रिमिनेशन ये भी होता है कि एक यूनिवर्सिटी के अंदर अगर 10 हॉस्टल हैं, उस 10 हॉस्टल में से एक हॉस्टल को अंबेडकर हॉस्टल बोल देना और उस पर बस दलित स्टूडेंट्स को रहने के लिए परमिशन दे देना, तो ये भी कास्ट डिस्क्रिमिनेशन होता है। और मेरे पहले भी बोले कि डायरेक्ट पीएचडी में जो दलितों का रिप्रेजेंटेशन होना चाहिए था उसको ना फिल करना, और जो हमारा वाइवा बॉसी की बात है उसका भी सवाल इस पर जुड़ता है। लेकिन कुछ बातें मैं जो पिछले दिनों बोल रहा था जब रोहित का लड़ाई हम लोग लड़ रहे थे, उसी को लेकर के मैं फिर से उसको रखूंगा और बाकी लोगों को भी हम लोग सुनेंगे। जब आज की तारीख में हम लोग क्लेम कर रहे हैं खुद को कि हम लोग 21st सेंचुरी में रहते हैं, हम लोग ज्यादा मॉडर्नाइज हो रहे हैं, हमारा देश प्रोग्रेस कर रहा है, हमारा जो देश है वो तरक्की कर रहा है। और कुछ लोग बोलते हैं कि जो ट्रेडिशनल कास्ट प्रैक्टिस था, जो हमारे प्राचीन काल में होता था, जो जिस तरह का कास्ट डिस्क्रिमिनेशन, वो आजकल तो मॉडर्न सोसाइटी में नहीं होता है, मॉडर्न इंस्टीट्यूट में नहीं होता है, अर्बन एरिया में नहीं होता है, बस गांव में होता है। लेकिन रोहित का जो इंस्टीट्यूशनल मर्डर हुआ और डेल्टा मेघवाल का जो इंस्टीट्यूशनल मर्डर हुआ, इस बात का प्रूव करता है कि आज भी जो सो कॉल्ड मॉडर्न सोसाइटी है उस पे कास्ट एग्जिस्ट करता है। आज भी जो सो कॉल्ड मॉडर्न इंस्टीट्यूट्स है उस पे कास्ट एग्जिस्ट करता है। आप लोग देख लीजिए कि गांव में होता क्या है। जब ये बोलते हैं कि गांव में कास्ट जातिवाद माने वहां पे एग्जिस्ट करता है, गांव में होता क्या है, जब कोई एक उच्च जात या फिर नीच जात के बीच में कभी झगड़ा होता है, कोई कन्फ्रंटेशन होता है, किसी बात को लेकर के बहस होता है, तो सबसे पहले जो लोअर कास्ट होते हैं उनके ऊपर क्या होता है, उनको सोशली बॉयकॉट कर दिया जाता है। जो सोसाइटी होता है उनको बॉयकॉट कर देता है, बोलता है कि तुम्हारे घर में अगर कोई शादी होगा तो हम लोग नहीं आएंगे, तुम्हारे घर में अगर किसी का डेथ हो जाएगा तो हम लोग नहीं आएंगे। तो उन लोगों को बोला जाता है कि तुमको पब्लिक स्पेस में हम लोग यूज करने नहीं देंगे, तुमको पब्लिक स्पेस से बॉयकॉट करेंगे। वहाँ के गांव में जो तालाब होता है, जो पानी पीने के लिए जो कुआं होता है, उनको पानी लेने के लिए परमिशन नहीं मिलता है, उनको टेम्पल में एंटर करने के लिए परमिशन नहीं दिया जाता है। अगर कोई दलित समुदाय से गांव का चुनाव लड़ने के लिए तैयार हो जाता है और चुनाव जीत अगर जाता है, गाँव का जो सरपंच होता है, पंचायत का हेड, अगर वो सरपंच भी हो जाता है तो उसको रिकॉग्नाइज नहीं किया जाता है। इस तरह का सोशल बॉयकॉट होता है। और सेम चीज आप यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ हैदराबाद पे देखी हुई है। जिस तरीके से हमारे साथी रोहित और उनके दोस्तों को सोशली बॉयकॉट किया गया, उनको बोला गया कि तुम लोगों को हॉस्टल में जाने नहीं देंगे, तुम लोगों को पब्लिक स्पेस में एंट्री करने नहीं देंगे, तुमको एकेडमिक एक्टिविटीज से डिबार करते हैं, तुमको जो तुम्हारे फंडामेंटल राइट है, राइट टू कंटेस्ट इलेक्शन, वो तुमको वो राइट टू कंटेस्ट इलेक्शन भी आजमाने नहीं देंगे, तुमको इलेक्शन लड़ने नहीं देंगे। तो ये सेम सोशल बॉयकॉट यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ हैदराबाद पे हुआ है। और ये इस बात का गवाही है कि आज भी हमारे जो एकेडमिक इंस्टीट्यूट्स है वहां पे कास्ट डिस्क्रिमिनेशन होता है। और इस बात को हम लोग देखे हैं, डेल्टा के केस में भी हम लोग देखे किस तरीके से एक लड़की जो पढ़ रही थी, एक होनहार लड़की थी जिसका माने एक रिकॉर्ड रहा है, उनको भी जिस तरीके से एक इंस्टीट्यूशनल डिस्क्रिमिनेशन झेलना पड़ा और उसके चलते उनका जान भी गंवाना पड़ा। और आज इसी बात को लेकर के हम लोग के बीच में जब हमारे टीचर्स आए हुए हैं हैदराबाद सेंट्रल यूनिवर्सिटी से, तो वो लोग अपना बात वहाँ पे रखेंगे। और प्रोफेसर भी मेरे पहले बोल रहे थे कि किस तरीके से एसयू के अंदर ये बातें लगातार कितने सालों से चली आ रही है और उसके खिलाफ कोई बोलने वाला मैंने बहुत ही कम लोग हैं, लेकिन उसको पब्लिक डोमेन में लाया नहीं जाता है। और ये बात तमाम सारे इंस्टीट्यूट्स में हैं। आप लोग वर्धमान महावीर जो इंस्टीट्यूट है उसका रिपोर्ट देख लीजिए, जो एम्स का रिपोर्ट है उसका भी देख लीजिए, ये सब चीजें हो रही है। लेकिन आखिर में कुछ बातें करके मैं अपना जो स्पीच उसको मैंने बाइंड अप करूंगा कि आखिर रोहित का जो इंस्टीट्यूशनल मर्डर था उस पर खास बात क्या था। पहले भी दलितों का हत्या हुआ है, पहले भी दलित जो महिला है उनका रेप होता आया हुआ है और आगे भी शायद होता रहे, इसमें कोई दोहराई नहीं है। लेकिन रोहित का जो इंस्टीट्यूशनल मर्डर हुआ उस पर एक बात खास है, वो बात ये है कि जिस सवाल को लेकर के कल हम लोग अलग अलग प्लेटफॉर्म पे लड़ रहे थे, आज रोहित के जो इंस्टीट्यूशनल मर्डर हुआ उसके बाद हम सब लोग एक प्लेटफॉर्म में आकर के रोहित के जस्टिस की लड़ाई लड़ रहे हैं और ये खास बात है। और आज इस बात को हम लोग को रिकॉग्नाइज करना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि जब रोहित को मारा गया ये एक मैसेज हम लोग को मिला है कि आज नीला और लाल झंडा को एक साथ आकर के जो भगवा झंडा है उसके खिलाफ हम लोग को लड़ाई लड़ना पड़ेगा, तभी जाकर के हम लोग ये लड़ाई जीत सकते हैं। और ये लड़ाई हम लोग पहले ही दिन से बोल रहे थे, कोई अलग अलग लड़ाई नहीं है। रोहित का इंस्टीट्यूशनल मर्डर हुआ, डेल्टा का इंस्टीट्यूशनल मर्डर से कोई डिफरेंसेस नहीं है, एक ही इंस्टीट्यूशनल मर्डर है। जेएनयू के ऊपर जो अटैक हुआ, एसयू के ऊपर जो अटैक हुआ, वो कोई अलग अटैक नहीं है। प्री प्लान तरीके से दोनों यूनिवर्सिटी पे अटैक किया गया है। इसीलिए हम सब लोगों को मिल करके एक यूनिटी बना करके हम लोगों को इस बात को उठाना पड़ेगा। और ये वक्त की मांग है कि हम लोग सब एक प्लेटफॉर्म में आकर के, चाहे कोई भी बिलीफ हो, कोई भी आइडियोलॉजिकल पोजीशन हो, उसको हम लोग बुलाते हुए एक ही साथ आकर के जय भीम लाल सलाम का हम लोग को नारा देते हुए रोहित का जो जस्टिस का लड़ाई है उसको लड़ना है। और इसी के साथ मैं फिर से हमारे जो टीचर्स हैं यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ हैदराबाद से, डीयू से और जेएनयू से, उन तमाम सारे लोगों को जेएनयू स्टूडेंट यूनियन की तरफ से मैं शुक्रिया अदा करना चाहूंगा। और इस लड़ाई को हम लोग सब लोग टीचर स्टूडेंट मिल करके आगे ले जाएंगे और जस्टिस फॉर रोहित वेमुला की लड़ाई को हम लोग आगे लेकर के उसको मंजिल तक पहुंचाए। जस्टिस फॉर डेल्टा मेघवाल का जो लड़ाई है उसको लेकर लड़ करके हम लोग आगे ले जाएंगे और उसको मंजिल तक पहुंचाएंगे। और तमाम सारे जो कास्ट डिस्क्रिमिनेशन है उसके खिलाफ हम लोग आगे यूनिटी बना करके लड़ेंगे। बस इसी के साथ मैं अपनी बात खत्म करूंगा। आप सभी लोग का शुक्रिया अदा करते हुए जय भीम, लाल सलाम।
Thank you, Rahman. Once again, my apologies. Look, attack on Ratnam was my teacher. Professor Ratnam was my teacher. Okay. Attack on Ratnam is nothing but attack on Ambedkar. Attack on Ambedkar's ideology. The way police behaved with Ratnam is, see, at one level you are trying to appropriate Ambedkar and celebrate 125 years of Ambedkar celebrations, HRD, it is shame on your part that at one level you are trying to celebrate 125 years by appropriating Ambedkar, and at another level you are trying to attack, Ratnam, who is a strong Ambedkarite, who stood with the students there. I know him, his commitment and conviction in Hyderabad University is so much so visible that he went to try to, find out what is happening there. And, the way he was targeted, and it is not that, the immediate instance. I know when I was a student, this same casteist Apparao, he asked Ratnam to ride the hostel which I stayed. And Ratnam said, no, why should I ride? Why should I ride on the hostel? There were, there might be some students who might be there, but see, he defied his orders, So he has problem with Ratnam from the day one, where Ratnam stood for, students' welfare there. Now I think I would like to request Ratnam to please, you can take your own time, sir. Please, enlighten us more about the casteist institution like Hyderabad University.
तो HCU के साथ ही संघर्ष करो, हम तुम्हारे साथ हैं।
Friends, good evening. At the outset, I must say thanks to JNU Teachers Association and JN Students Association, Union, sorry, and co-panelists. We are invited for this panel discussion, and myself and Tathagat are here, and we would like to share some of our views. And we must appreciate the way JNU teachers and students are combinedly fighting for the justice in our university, because here 95% of the teachers are with students, whereas in HCU 5% of the students are teachers with students. I think it's a reverse anyway. Now Rohit is a history, but that history created two streams of thought. That's what I believe. What happened in August 2015, and then what happened in 2016 January, and what happened in 2016 March 22nd. I think if you take this one, when Rohit died on 17th, committed suicide in January, after some days Rohit's mother came to Delhi, and Prime Minister made a statement. Bharat Mata lost a son. That's what his statement. From Charvakas to Rohit Chakravarti Vemula, his name. From Charvakas to Rohit Chakravarti. From Manu to Modi. These two streams of history we have to understand. Because there is if you take from Karamchedu, Chundur, prior to that, Belchi, Lakshmana Bhurupate, entire Dandakaranya, Kilivenmani, Khairlanchi, so many places. I think Dalits, Adivasis of this country shedding their blood. For what? To be an anti-nationals? Why Rohit Vemula committed suicide? There were many suicides on the campus. There are many deaths. There are many atrocities. But why Karamchad has become an important mark in a Dalit movement? Why Naxalbari has become an important thing? Why Rohit Vemula suicide has become an important, what I feel is a second wave of students movement in the country. The radicalized second wave of student movement. I think there is something. So when he says that Bharat Mata lost a son, but who is responsible for losing a son? It's Appa Rao. Then if you know that Appa Rao is responsible for the death of Bharat Mata, then why Appa Rao is not punished? Why he is not removed from the post of Vice Chancellor? Yes, I must. Then Appa Rao, when we were arrested and imprisoned almost 1 week, he said one word, I am pained that faculty have been arrested. I am asking Appa Rao, had you had a pain when Rohit Vemula died, you would have come and visited the body. Even enemy dies, I think this is we understand, if it is my country, I understand, even enemy dies, we would like to visit and pay tribute to that body. Why you escaped from the campus? He is your student. You said, he is my student, Bharat Mata, son of your Prime Minister. Then why you escaped from the university? You have no morality to even visit the dead body of Rohit Vemula. We were there. I think Tathagat was entire night at the dead body. I was there up to late night in front of the dead body. Many faculty were there. The same Appa Rao, had he had a pain when two faculty were brutally assaulted by policemen. He has no morality to call us and say that you withdraw the cases or don't take the faculty. I think Mr. Appa Rao, you are not pain, you are indifference to pain. Your indifference to pain made Rohit Vemula to die. I think as the JNU SU president said, or member said, I think it's his name, the symbolic erection of Velivada in university. The symbolic erection of Velivada, that is ghetto, in university. University is an institution. Caste is institution, or some people it's the structure or superstructure. We are not going to that debate. As an institution, university, it's a modern institution, as a higher learning institution, when Dalit students symbolically erected in Veliwada ghetto, faculty as a vice chancellor has not visited the Veliwada. So they brought back their village to the university. Look what he said, we are discriminated in the village. We are excluded in the village. The same way the village treating us, you are treating in a university. So there is no difference between village and university. Then our struggle is for justice. So you have not extended support as a teacher. Forget about the vice chancellor. Your vice chancellor comes and goes. We don't care for it. As a teacher, you have no morality to visit Veliwada. Just before 3 days, Rohit Vemala's death, we were asked by vice chancellor to be there. My own student has been expelled. So he asked all the supervisors, including Rohit Vemala's supervisor. There were deans, all the deans, senior most faculty, we were there as a supervisors. He gave half an hour lecture. The students are doing this thing, that thing, this thing. Then you must talk to the students as a supervisors not to involve this kind of thing. After that I asked, sir, you are asking me after expulsion of my own student or social boycotting of my own student, what has to be done? Had you asked me before expulsion, I would have said something to him. Now what should I tell? You did all the damage. Now even then, I suggested him, here all the deans are there, senior most faculty is there, as a supervisors, we just go to Veliwada and extend our solidarity. You come with us, we are with you. As a vice chancellor, he refused to come and visit Veliwada. After 3 days, Rohit died. They were lacking confidence. They were lacking all that supposed to come from the institution. Appa Rao denied that. Appa Rao outrightly, with casteist mind, very vindictive mind, he denied. I must say that. He refused to come and visit Veliwada. Had he visited on that day, I believe that Rohit Vemala would not have. This is what, so you are vice chancellor or you are a faculty. You see, this I think we should not. See, after that, what happened? He left the university after his death and he came back on 22nd. I think Tathagat will tell what happened, how we were attacked by the police, how women students, especially women students, were attacked. I don't know whether what I want to say so many things what happened in the university, but I must say something, how we have to understand the universities and the caste question. 1948 starts with the first Radhakrishnan Commission to one of the progressive commission like Kothari Commission till Thorat Commission. I think none of these commissions except one commission in 1982 especially dealt with the JNU, Mrs. Gandhi constituted not to have any politics on the campus, not to have any violence on the campus. That was exclusively for that. Rest of the commissions never dealt about the discrimination that is going on the campuses in this country. You created good central universities. This is different set of institutions for higher learning. You have introduced of late reservations. But once they enter into the campuses, Ambedkar was asked to sit outside the classroom. Now you are asking them into the classroom, but you are discriminating. So physical discrimination of the caste has been slowly wiping out or wiped out. But the mentality of the caste, what Ambedkar said, the state of mind is not able to, I think we are not able to fight. I think this is the fight we have to, I think we are all trying to wage against the anti-caste fight on the campuses. I am really happy that JNU and University of Hyderabad was taking, because I stayed almost 9 years here. My supervisor was Jaya Hassan. I did all my higher education here. What we taught from these institutions, when institutions are moving like this, the individuals who captured the institutions with a different ideology, then the ideological fight that you have or the ideology that they wanted to have, I think we have to make a point. I would like to make a point. Why Rohit died? Yes, I wanted to come back. Why Rohit death has become an important for us? I must say you that I think from 90s onwards, there is a perceptible change on the campuses in this country. There is a consolidation of SC, ST, BC minorities on one side, consolidation of left forces and Bahujan forces. This consolidation of forces is not tolerated. There is an intolerance for this one. That is explicitly written by Rohit. He is from SFI, came back to Ambedkar ideology. The synthesizing of Ambedkar and Marx is going on among the students. I think this is not tolerated by rightist forces or Hindutva forces. When there was 100-page special issue by organizer on Ambedkar. We wrote, some of us, reply. There was no reply, much reply, so we started to write a reply for that organizer. When we wrote reply to that, myself, Tathagat, Professor Aragopal and Saumya, 4 or 5 teachers were declared by ABVP RS as anti-nationals. They pasted our photos and pasted these are the anti-nationals, taking the government salary and teaching anti-nationalism in the universities. That is an attitude of an ideology. If you have that ideology, that is a counter-revolutionary ideology, what Ambedkar said. That counter-ideology, counter-revolutionary ideology that you want to propagate, then when we take the real Marxism and Ambedkarism, that might work for the social transformation of this country, then you are branding as an anti-national. Then why you said that Bharatamata lost his son, it is an anti-national? Rohit fought with ABVP people in 2015 August in his room. They said Rohit tore their posters and fought it. The entire episode, if I narrate what happened in Proctoral Board, how it was denied, how Rohit in a desperation looking for justice, that was not done. Of course, there was internal problems in the struggle that also expressed in his letter. All that we take, the campuses in this country are heading towards something. What is that something? If we understand that, I think institutions, especially higher learning institutions in this country, are trying to correct something. That's something that we could see among our students. When we started Ambedkar's center in University of Hyderabad, there's a lot of protest from the university teachers. No, you cannot start a center on Ambedkar name. You cannot start a center in the university structure. If you want, you can start outside the structure. As if Ambedkar is not an ideologist or a thinker. So there is something which has to be addressed. I think university students in HCU are trying to understand that. They are asking. So there was, when I attended academic council meeting, teachers was telling, senior most teachers are telling to me, why these people need this much of fellowship? It's a waste of money. And Senthil was asked by his professor Srivastav, one of the dean at that time, your father and mother is earning 5,000 by rearing the pigs. If you join with them, so you also add some 5 more thousand, so 10,000 is enough for you. After 1 week, he committed suicide. If that is the, what you call, the caste, the mindset of the teachers, then how to address it? It's a very difficult question. The physical caste discrimination that Ambedkar faced, sitting outside the classroom. Okay, he fought and came into the classroom. Now students are coming into the classroom. The kind of inconvenient questions that are posing in the classroom is not able to tackle by the teachers, most of the teachers. I think if I speak academic discrimination and administrative discrimination that is going on in the campuses, so very much. There are two kinds of discrimination that they are trying to fight. Ambedkar Students Association and left forces on the campus in HCU. Administrative discrimination and academic discrimination. Academic discrimination is that not giving supervisors, putting so many questions that you cannot do this area of research. A teacher, this is my specialization. Sir, I would like to work in this specialization. No, you can't work. No, you can't work. So they are outrightly rejecting the students. Now earlier, 60s and 70s till 90s, Dalit students were not getting fellowships. Hence their enrollment in higher education was very less. Now after giving enhancement of fellowship, enrollment in higher education is more. The teachers, they told me in academic council, earlier meetings, since Dalit students were not having fellowship, they cannot do research, proper research or meritorious research, so called. Now when they were given fellowships, now there is another discrimination. Earlier, since you are not having fellowship, you can't do PhD, so it's better to leave the university. Now when you got a fellowship, now what they designed, in front of me I saw, one teacher was telling, since they are getting free fellowship, we must have our own classroom test for Dalit students to pass, then we'll ask them to claim the fellowship. Sir, you said that earlier they were not having fellowship, sufficient money. What was a fellowship? They are getting 400 rupees, 500 rupees from state government. If any PhD student, if I ask to get Xerox this book, they must, I think they have to spend 50 rupees on that book. If they spend 400 rupees on entire collection of material, so what money they would spend on other mess charges and other things. So they were not able to do the research. They were in search of jobs. They loved PhD. Now they are getting 15,000, 18,000. They wanted to do research. They want to do more literature. They want to put more questions to the teachers. And then they are not able to understand. Their involvement in research was tackled by discriminating. No, you can't be in research. So you can't do research. So labs were denied, and supervisors were not given. Proper topics were not suggested, and then even doctoral committees were not properly conducted, and hence their fellowship has been stopped months together. When the fellowship is stopped months together, it accumulates 1 lakh, 2 lakhs. So then he goes to the clerk. Sir, my fellowship is stopped. Clerk says, from 10 to 5 I am sitting in the room or in administration. Entire month I get 15,000. Whereas without working, you are getting 2 lakhs rupees. Why should I pass it? So he is holding further. So academic discrimination and administration discrimination, these two are exposed by Ambedkar Students Association on the campuses. So in this context, I think I don't know how to put another perspective, understanding of entire institutions. I have a lot to say. But anyway, let me say on what happened on 22nd March. I was there in selection board on 22nd March from 10 to 2 o'clock. After that, I was told that Apparao came to the campus. And Apparao, how he came? Because MHRD, his own ministry said that Apparao could not reach out the students. That is why Rohit Vemula died. The 2-member committee that visited the university after Rohit Vemula died categorically said he was not able to reach the students. He should have a shame on that. Secondly, there was a committee, judicial inquiry committee on Apparao, yet to be submitted. It's a final report. That's also pending. The third one, he himself filed a writ petition in High Court, passing SC/ST Atrocities Act against Apparao. It has not been granted. Putting on 3 criminal cases on you or 3 things on you, how could you enter into the campuses? You are not having a minimum sense of visiting dead body. You escape like a thief, and now you want to come with police force. What kind of a teacher you are? Do you have any stature to be in a university? I am asking. If that is the case, in 2002, you are responsible for rustication of 10 Dalit students. Why? I asked as a as a warden at that time, privatizing of messes is not possible in central universities. Central universities, messes are run by the students. As a teacher, I am not supposed to involve your mess affairs. But I told you, sir, students are running the mess. Their mess charge is 20 rupees per day. After central purchasing committee, mess charge has gone 40 rupees. Let me say at one example. If I buy 2,000 rupees in any what you call the supermarket, 2,000 worth rupees, if I buy, that fellow asks me, sir, shall I drop you or home delivery? He'll ask us home delivery. If 2,000 rupees I buy, he asks for home delivery for 40 rupees charges. If I buy for university in a month 30 lakhs worth goods, how much money I would get from same supermarket? That money is taken away by the so-called Central Purchasing Committee headed by Appa Rao. I opposed it. Then that students asked that question, 10 Dalit students were rusticated, same ASA. After resuming the charge in 2016 or 15, end of the 15, as soon as he came as a vice chancellor, he boycotted 5 Dalit students coming from ASA. So this is the indicative mind that you have on Ambedkar Students Association, on the campuses that you wanted to, I don't know what he has in mind. If you take this thing, the same Appa Rao, how he could enter into the university with police forces. So they told me that the students are doing some protest at VC Guest House or VC Bangla. We went there. When we went along with some teachers, I saw that students were having decent democratic protest on lawn. They were not having any stones in their hands. It was a grass. They were sitting like this. And Appa Rao and ABP students and deans were sitting inside his bangla. Students were, I saw, they were raising slogans, that's all. It's a very decent and democratic protest, I must say. I must confess you. Then we saw that we are standing somewhere, some of the teachers, all of a sudden there was a police surrounded the students. 2 rows of girl students were there. The way they were kicked, they were dragged, they were beaten up. I think 16 years of my service on the campus, I never saw that kind of, as a reminder of emergency. The way they dragged girl students by men police, we said, don't beat our students. They are asking our names. We were told that Appa Rao supplied names. These people must be arrested. These are the people must be applied. They asked me, who are you? I said, I am a faculty here. What is your name? I said, I am a faculty here, head of the Center for Ambedkar Studies. What is your name? They are asking. I said, don't beat my students. That's what I asked. I didn't disturb this is a campus, you cannot have this kind of violence. No, Appa Rao told us, we wanted to take. The way they beat the students, after taking it forcefully, we were all pushed into the vans. Let me say, 40 minutes from the campus, when the van started, police van started, 40 minutes it took us to take to the police station. 40 minutes they beat the students. One student caught by 3 policemen, and 3 policemen, hands, legs and head. Whatever the way they want to beat, they bet. One boy comes from Bengal. Without specs he can't see. Specs was fell on the floor of the van. And he was trying to trace that. They took the specs and said, I can't, that boy said, sir, I can't see. Then they took the specs from him and they tried to punch in his eyes. This is the violence. You are a teacher? Or you are a vice chancellor? What kind of institution that you want to head? What kind of institution that we would like to see on democratic country? If that is the case, why you are branding? We are taking Ambedkar name. We are taking Marx and Ambedkar, and we are taking this kind of ideology. You are trying to say we are anti-nationals. The violence that inflicted on students, 40 minutes, my friends, I think it's a very, very difficult to explain. I think that is why when we were, 30 hours, we were taken to 2-3 police stations. all, as soon as we captured, our phones was snatched away. I think Dr. Tathagat would tell us, I think, how he was in a different van, I was in different van. They were taken in ambulance, they were taken in police van. They took away our cell phones, they were not informed, our family members were not informed. After 24 hours also, at midnight, we were taken to the magistrate. After that, I think Serlapalli Central Jail, after 5 they don't allow anyone, even VIP also, no one. But at 3 o'clock, we were taken to the jail. 24th, we were captured or abducted, whatever the words that we want to use, I think we can use. Very forcefully, we were taken 24th, 3 o'clock, when we landed in Central Prison, when we went into our barracks. There, I think those people, I'll try to. Those people were, I felt, because I teach in a classroom, jail is like this, police are like this. In a university becomes a jail becomes a university. I could see some kind of, they offered food at 3 o'clock. Yes, they were offered. The same day, Central University students, same upper out, denied water, food, electricity, ATMs, all the ATMs were taken, we were told, suspended. If that is the case, I think what life science you teach is a life science teacher. This is a school of life science. The life of the campus in the dark. I think this kind of a discrimination that Rohit asked from the beginning. What is going on? Fellowships, the kind of academic discrimination. We wanted to say the Velivada, how it was erected, it has a history on the campus, and all that maybe sometimes we would like to express more, because Tathagat is also there. I must thank all of you for having this kind of talk on JNU and giving this opportunity. Once again, I thank Teachers Association and Students Union. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Before I ask Tathagat to speak, there is an announcement that on behalf of JNU Students Union and JNU Teachers Association, that there will be that the tomorrow's teaching talk would be delivered by Professor S.K. Thorat. He will be speaking at 6 p.m. here on Ambedkar and freedom. Now I request Tathagat. See, look, I mean, Tathagat, I didn't had much interaction with him because I left by the time when Tathagat, joined, it seems. And perhaps many of you might have heard about Professor Kannan. He is like another Appara. Okay, he is from his own department. I can sense how problematic, because Tathagat's attack on Tathagat can be seen that how he tried to question the idea of freedom. In fact, he is from mathematics department, and Professor Kannan was from mathematics department. He is still, he dug his own well to protect his purity. That is the height of, Brahminism that prevailed in HCU and prevailing in HCU. So Tathagat, by facing such kind of people and by questioning such kind of people, he has been targeted. So, so Tathagat, and also I was closely observing his post, he came out from the jail. He started with, typical like, JNUite, like, Ratnam was your, was a JNU student, Professor Ratnam was a JNU student. Somewhere this, he also imbibed this struggle, from the JNU, that inspiration. So Tathagat, I thought he might be from JNU. He started जैसे हम नारे लगाता है ना यहाँ पहले नारे लगा के फिर भाषण शुरू करते हैं हम. So Tathagat was like that. So that's why deliberately I kept Tathagat at the end, so that he will more inspire. Also, equally like what Professor Ratnam, inspired us. Now I request Tathagat to share his views.
Long live! Long live! Long live! शिक्षकों, छात्रों, कर्मचारियों की एकता जिंदाबाद! 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 एसयू के साथियों, संघर्ष करो! हम तुम्हारे साथ हैं! डॉक्टर तथागत को जय भीम उल जोहार! जय भीम उल जोहार!
Yeah, I think I'm supposed to give slogans. I don't have much of an option. So, Johar Rohit Vemula! Johar Rohit Vemula! तुम कितने रोहित मारोगे?
कल से रोहित निकलेगा!
So, many people have spoken. I think a lot of what has been happening. I really don't know what to speak about and what not to speak about. But one thing that I would definitely want to say is, like, we keep facing these questions. Actually, maybe I should set this straight before I go to something else. This dichotomy of JNU and HCU, I think we need to question at some level. I mean, from 2 points of view. One is there also we were like actually recently when what like Professor Ratnam was saying just now, they have converted HCU into a prison. They are not letting anyone inside. They are not letting any so-called political leaders inside. They are not letting anyone who is politically active inside. They are not letting even media inside. They are not letting lawyers. They are not letting our lawyers inside. They are not even letting the families of the students inside. They did not let Radhika Vemula inside. The day after we were picked up, we came back and heard. It seems she was almost on the point of fainting outside. Kanhaiya was there. So few days back when they had stopped Teesta Setalwar and 3 other MPs who had come from Kerala. And Teesta was invited by Professor Ratnam officially for a program in his department. Even then she was stopped. And then there was one journalist who had come from here, who had gone from Delhi. She was also stuck there, and we were outside. We were trying to get the gates opened and so on. And then this journalist, she was asking questions and she was taking interviews outside itself. And she kept asking me that this does not happen in JNU. JNU so much happened, but even then media was allowed and people could come in, etc., etc. Why is it that in your university you don't have that kind of broad support from the faculty and broad support from the students, and why are you so divided? So what I told her is that the struggles that we have seen happening in JNU and the struggles that we are seeing happening in HCU are very different kind of struggles. The struggle that is happening in HCU is also against the idea of HCU. It's against the idea of the foundational violence the violence that forms the foundation of these kinds of so-called centers of higher learning, like HCU. So, and the struggle is against caste. So it's obvious that large sections of the Dronacharyas will not come in support of the struggle. In fact, if it so happened in HCU that all the 500 faculty members came in support of our struggle, then I think we would have had to question the nature of our struggle. Then I would have been unsure that, I would think that we are not doing something correct. But the fact that they are not coming, I'm happy about it. It tells us, keeps constantly reminding us that we must be raising the correct questions. So that's one thing. We need to understand the difference in the political histories, the political movements that are happening in the two places. But the other thing I also wanted to point out is that at some level we need to also, not separate out institutions such as JNU, HCU, etc., from or the so-called central universities from the other universities, from the other colleges, right? Just now, like when we are speaking here, the teachers of Osmania University, they are protesting against this thing, that the fact that they have not been paid their salaries for months together now. We need to understand that most of the students who we are talking about, the students from the marginalized communities, the students from both the socially, economically and culturally marginalized and oppressed communities, the ones who are at the heart of and at the forefront of the struggles that are happening both at JNU and HCU, where do they come from? Where were they before they came to institutions like JNU and HCU? So we also need to talk about the other universities, the other colleges, because places like JNU and HCU, they don't exist in the air. They exist on the shoulders of these other so-called lesser universities, and we should start talking about that. Otherwise, we are at some level we are replicating the same hierarchies that we are supposed to be fighting against. Having said that, again, because I'm from HCU, I can mostly talk about HCU. And what has been happening there. So one of the things that has been concretely, happening in HCU, I don't know. Like I've been saying, telling others also. I don't know whether we'll achieve all the demands that we are fighting for. We also know that the demands. This is not just a struggle against one Appa Rao. Appa Rao is sort of our first and immediate enemy, but but the struggle is against, like someone was saying, the struggle is against hundreds of such apparatus. The struggle is against, the entire structure of caste. It's a part of the historic struggle of annihilation of caste, and the struggle is not going to end till caste is annihilated from this country. So we are, when the struggle started, those of us who have been part of the struggle from before, all of us knew, none of us were under any kind of illusion that this was going to be an easy struggle. All of us knew that we were in for something that is a very long drawn, very protracted struggle, which is not going to end anytime soon, and all kinds of backlash are going to come, and that is what is going to happen, and therefore, one of the things that I wanted to convey to you from our comrades in HCU, from all the students, the entire student community of HCU, and certain sections of the teaching community in HCU, and certain sections of the so-called non-teaching community. I mean, I have problems with the term non-teaching, as if teaching is the most important part of the university and non-teaching is not so important. But the kind of message that I bring from them is that no one is in any kind of mood of giving up. In fact, what they did, one of the mistakes, Apparao, we know that, every day, every decision that he has taken is a false decision, is a wrong decision. But I think the most idiotic decision that he took on that day, in terms of unleashing the brutal police force on the students, is that he thought that they would crush the movement. He thought that this is what is going to put an end to the movement. But what he didn't realize is that what he thought is that after killing one Rohit, he could do this and then stop the struggle that is happening around the death of Rohit Vemula, and not just around his death, but the largest struggle that has been going on since August 2015. But what he didn't realize is that in the process of such police brutalities on 22nd March and the subsequent custody of students, and many of who are kids, they are children, they're 18-year-olds, they're 19-year-olds. What he didn't realize is that and what has happened is that he by himself and his police force and his political masters, these fascists who are ruling this country today, what they've done is they've created hundreds of Rohits. They've created hundreds of Rohits through what they have done on that day. And let me we want to tell them, they should hear this out, that these Rohits are not going to die. All of us collectively will ensure that these Rohits are not going to die. One of the things that the struggle has already, this is what I was going to say earlier, we don't know whether our demands, we are going to achieve all our demands or not. But one thing that I think we have already achieved is that we have torn down the masks of everyone in University of Hyderabad. Everyone in the University of Hyderabad now has complete information of who is who, what stands or what ideas do these people have, regardless of what they write in their EPW papers, regardless of what they write in their academic journals, regardless of what they talk in their classrooms. Right now, we know who is who, and we are not going to forget this. We are all going to remember this, and we are going to pass on this information to the people who are going to come to HCU in the subsequent years, so that no more Rohits get killed. So that has been, I think, one achievement that this struggle already has had. But of course, the struggle will have to go on, and we will see we will fight it till the end. Either they win or we win. There is no, it has gone beyond the point of no return, and no one is going to, settle down, with any kind of a quote-unquote middle ground that some people are trying to advocate. To talk about 22nd March, I think we need to sort of also talk about 18th March, what happened on 18th March. As some of you might be knowing, this Apparao, he went on leave. Like Professor Ratnam was saying, in fact, he fled from the campus the night when, the night of Rohit's martyrdom. And ever since then, he has been absconding. He is a criminal. He is one of the primary accused. He is the primary accused in under serious charges. There is a CST Atrocities Prevention Act upon him. There is IPC Section 306 on him for abetting suicide, and so on and so forth. In that period, Professor Periyaswamy was the Vice Chancellor, and he himself belongs to a backward community, and at the same time he is one of the most renowned scientists in the country, and what he was trying to do is he was trying to sort of administratively he was trying to take steps which reflect what the movement was about. He had conducted consultations with the Joint Action Committee for Social Justice. He had taken cognizance of the demands that were coming from the struggle. He had sent those demands for consultation across various schools and departments, and then he was in the process of summarizing the demands and in particular certain administrative measures he was trying to implement, which he was going to propose in the academic council meeting that was supposed to happen on 24th March. As part of that, he had conducted this meeting on 18th March, where he had called all the heads and deans of the university. And what Professor Sukumar was saying, I was reminded of this. These are the same heads and deans, sir, who had who you were saying had objected to RGNF fellowships, and this time also they did something very similar. So in that meeting, what Professor Priyasomaya suggested, I mean, Professor Ratnam was there in the meeting. He can give you more details of what happened. I heard from him and other people about what happened in the meeting. So there, one of the, I'll give you 3 examples of the kind of proposals that Professor Priyasomaya had brought. One proposal was that the non-net fellowship of all the students be increased from rupees 8,000 to rupees 25,000 per month to bring it at par with other institutions. The second demand was that the second proposal that he had was the institution of an anti-discrimination officer who would take sumo cognizance of complaints of caste discrimination on campus. The third proposal that he had was proper representation of SCs and STs in all kinds of committees and governing bodies of the university. So not surprisingly, all these 3 demands met with a lot of and there was also so these people were also trying to, so this time University of Hyderabad administration, they want to reduce the intake of students in the coming academic year, and that is also something that he opposed in that meeting. He said that if you reduce the intake of students, it basically hurts the marginalized students, so you cannot do that. We cannot reduce our intakes. So these are some of the things that he was trying to propose in that meeting, and obviously he faced a lot of reaction and a lot of resistance to all of these demands. And let me tell you what kind of reactions came. So with respect to the fellowship issue, these heads and deans, imagine this, they told him that how can we talk about fellowship in an academic meeting? What has fellowships got to do with academics? That's what they said. It's incidentally the same heads and deans, they had conducted a meeting recently with Mr. Apparao after he launched his coup and took over the university. The same heads and deans, they had a meeting with Mr. Apparao. In that meeting, they took the decision of giving the responsibility of security of the meeting to CISF, Central Industrial Security Forces. It's a paramilitary force, right? And so we have been asking them that if fellowships have got nothing to do with academics, what has CISF got to do with academics? Anyway, so that was what they said about the anti-discriminatory office, and this is very significant. What they said was that we already have an SC/ST grievance cell, so why do we need an anti-discriminatory officer? Now, if you look at the history of Hyderabad Central University, like many people have been saying, if you forget about the day-to-day, moment-to-moment caste discrimination and violence that is rampant in the university, in every corner of the university, just leave them aside. Just let's talk about suicides of Dalit students. There, Hyderabad Central University has a disgusting record. It has. Rohit, I think, was the 11th. Rohit, I think, was the 11th Dalit student to have committed suicide there in the last 10 years. So this is, and what has the SC/ST cell done? Can anyone tell me what decisions the SC/ST cell taken? Can anyone tell us what kind of complaints have gone to the SC/ST cell? The reason is, the SC/ST cell does exist on paper, but it has never functioned, that we all know. But there is one crucial difference between the SC/ST cell and the anti-discrimination officer. The SC/ST cell is under the control of the university administration, whereas the anti-discriminatory officer, that office would be an autonomous, quasi-judicial body which cannot be controlled by the vice chancellor or the registrar of the university. That is why these people are concerned. There is another sort of indicator of this. Like the first UHTA meeting, the first University of Hyderabad Teachers Association meeting that we had after the death of Rohit. In that meeting I saw the kind of polarization and the kind of fights that I had never seen before in any UHTA meeting in the university, and people were standing on 2 different sides, and there was a lot of it was a very militant meeting. And one of the demands that really sparked off all kinds of emotions in a certain section of in the majority section of the teachers present in that meeting was when some of us raised this demand that we want a judicial probe not just into Rohit's death, but also into all the prior deaths, into the death of Senthil Kumar, into the death of Puliyala Raju, into the death of Madari Venkatesh. All of these deaths should be dug up, and there should be judicial inquiry into all the deaths. And the moment we said this, there were a section of teachers who stood up, and we thought that we are going to get beaten up in that meeting. So it's not surprising, because if you look at the reports, the internal reports also that have come, in the context of all these so-called suicides, none of these suicides, all of them are institutional murders. But the reports, if you look at the names, of the faculty members who are in various ways responsible for these deaths, the list of the names is too long. The list of the names includes a lot of people whose existence, whose careers, whose fame and whose material benefits are going to get questioned fatally if there are proper judicial inquiries that happen. That is what these people are scared of. They have a lot at stake, and that is why these people are against this whole idea of anti-discrimination office. And incidentally, this is not Professor Periyaswamy's personal idea. This is part of a UGC circular that had come in 2012, which talks about which gives a guideline for instituting this body. But that circular was not circulated at all. It was completely hushed up. It was put on the carpet. None of us even knew that the circular existed until recently, when it was dug up and so on. So this is the kind of meeting that was happening on 18th. Now, we all knew that there was a certain section of, mostly these life science faculty members and other science departments predominantly, and also social science departments and some humanities people, etc. Particularly all these heads and deans. They were, conducting their own covert campaigns through their students, through their own lobbies, through their own political contacts, in order to bring back Mr. Appa Rao. So we knew that this process was this was in the process, but what we did not know is that he would come back in such a brazen and blatant and rushed way on 22nd. And the only reason that can explain that is that he wanted to he did not want the 24th Academic Council meeting to happen, because if it happened while Professor Periyaswamy was the Vice Chancellor, then all these people were scared that these kinds of proposals might somehow get passed in the Academic Council meeting, and then what happens to not just Mr. Appa Rao's future, but all of these people's future. That was the anxiety, that was the fear that these people were operating under, and that is why he is brought back in the way he was brought back on the 22nd. And if you look at the press note that is circulated on 22nd, he clearly mentions there, one of the main things that he mentions there is that the Academic Council meeting on 24th hereby stands postponed, and the reason he gives is holy. He says that 24th is holy. That's why we are, postponing it. But all of us know that that holy is not the reason. Anyway, so these things were happening, and then we were like, Professor Ratnam was saying that we were all part of the protest, and this was going on, and then Lathi Charge started. I don't want to talk too much about the descriptions of the police brutalities, and I'm sure you must have watched the videos, and particularly given that you are all JNU students and faculty members, no one here is new to police Lathi Charge. We know that. So there's no reason for me to sort of give details of what they were doing. I also cannot talk much about our the so-called prison experience, again for a similar reason, because we know that there are students here from Kashmir, we know that there are students here from Northeast, we know that there are students here who belong to the Muslim community. So who am I to talk about prison experience to them, because they have been living in prisons for hundreds of years. So but one thing that I wanted to mention, which is sort of similar, which sort of has a connection with what has been happening in JNU over the entire episode that started off from February 9th, is that when they were beating us and when they were threatening us with murder and encounters and all that, one of the consistent blames that, or one of the consistent question that they were raising us, or they were telling us, is that you all are anti-nationals, you all are you support Afzal Guru and Yaqub Memon, and you should better go to Pakistan and all those kinds of usual stuff. So I told them that, yeah, in a country where even Rahul Gandhi is supposed to be seditious, some of us should be anti-national. Otherwise, what kind of answers are we going to give to history when history asks us questions? Of course we are anti-nationals. Why not? So that's what we were telling them. Then they told us that, do you know what Telangana police is capable of? They were trying to scare us about encounters and stuff. And then I'm just saying this because we have to understand that where the anger comes from, where the anger of this police force and where the anger of the state comes from, right? We told them that, we totally know why, what Telangana police is capable of. We know what you did to Vikaruddin when you killed him, when he was in your custody under handcuffs, and still you murdered him. So yeah, we are under no kind of false illusions of what you're capable of and so on. And these are some of the reasons why some of us were particularly brutalized and beaten up and whatever they did. Coming back to now, so I don't want to talk too much. I'm hoping that we can have a discussion session also. There are many people here. It will be, instead of us coming here and talking, too much, it's better if we can have some discussions and question answers and all. So the one thing that I did want to mention is there's this whole, I agree with others when people are saying that this is something that is very new is happening right now with respect to this kind of student activism and student politics, is this phenomenon of the Ambedkarite forces and the left forces at some level coming together. We know, those of us who are part of it, we know that it's not an easy alliance. We know that there are serious political differences. We know that there are, and there is a history of, distrust, and there is a history of, complications, and these are all serious complications. We should not be brushing off these differences. These differences need to be debated, need to be discussed. These differences cannot be buried under that kind of solidarity doesn't work, and we don't want that kind of solidarity. One of the reasons why, so I also kept asking myself that what is it that is happening now, which seems to be bringing these two forces together. One thing is, of course, that we are all faced with a primary enemy of fascists, and that definitely has a role to play in it. That we all realize that we have to join our forces because this is a common enemy and a very big common enemy that we all have. But I think there is also something that is a little more structural to this. That's what we are witnessing also in HCU in particular, in terms of what is happening, what was happening not just before 22nd March, but even after 22nd March, is this, the clash or the confusions between what is considered private and what is considered public. Now we know that the left, left politics and left movements, there is a very clear understanding of what private means. We talk about private property, we talk about the inheritance, we talk about public property, we talk about nationalization, all of that, right? But at the same time, so there is a left understanding. What I mean is there is a left understanding of what is private and what is public. But there is also an Ambedkarite understanding of what is private and what is public. In the sense, if you look at, how does caste operate, right? Caste, for all practical purposes, is, legalistically speaking, caste is, illegal, right? Practice of caste hierarchy or caste discrimination is supposed to be illegal according to the Constitution of India. The laws, the legalities that are supposed to form the basis of the legal life of this country, none of them officially say that caste is legal. So there is a sense of caste being illegal in the public. There's a sense of caste being illegal when you think of caste as something in the public. But there is nothing in the private code of life. There is nothing in the private moral code. The code that exists in our drawing rooms, the code that exists in our families, the code that exists in our laboratories, in our classrooms. There is nothing in that code which makes caste illegal. In fact, their caste is the norm. Their caste is how things are. It is the main axis of how things the functions are carried out. Now, what these people, what the fascists are trying to do, and when I say fascists in our society, there's not, fascists and Brahminical, in my opinion, are the same thing. The only kind of fascism that exists in this country is Brahminical fascism. So whether I say fascism or Brahminism, it's the same thing. So I know that there are social scientists here and there are political scientists here. I'm just a mathematician. I know that I probably am saying things that I should not be talking about, but just bear with me. So the thing is, the clash is between this confusion between the private and the public. People like Apparao, they have, or the Indian state for that matter, or any of these fascist forces, they make no distinction between what is private and what is public. Like, and this can be seen in various ways. Like, I mean, I'll give you some instances of, in particular, what is happening in XU. Right? When people went to protest against, Mr. Apparao's coup on 22nd March, first of all, we were asked to vacate the premises because we were apparently trespassing into someone's private residence, right? We were telling them that this is a VC lodge, it is a public institution, it's built out of public money. So what do you mean private residence? The same people, incidentally, last year, when one woman professor, Professor Gracia Stemson, her house, her quarter inside the campus was raided completely illegally, and her character was assassinated by the same administration. Ironically, they said that when we were asking them that she is a single woman who is living and she's from the northeast, she's an ST, she's she belongs to the tribal community from the northeast, how can you invade her house like this? The administration told me that this is not her private house, there's a quarter, so it's a public space. But then when we go to protest at VC's lodge, then suddenly it becomes private residence. We also told them that even if it's a private residence, let's assume that it's a private residence, but on that converted into a prison, again the same problems, again the same kind of blurring of the distinctions between what is private and what is public has come up. They are blocking the media, they are blocking, like I said, they are blocking everyone from coming out, coming inside. How can anyone who has any notion or any understanding of what a public institution means, how can they take this kind of a decision officially? How can a university administration officially take a decision which prevents people from outside from coming inside? So again the same issue of private versus public comes back. So and there I think that can be one of the main points at which we can talk about the convergence of the Ambedkarite ideas of public and private and the left ideas of public and private, and that I think can form a crucial axis of our alliance and of our solidarity. There would be differences, there would be debates about many things which are the different aspects of both of these ideologies, but at least on this ground I think there should be a lot of clarity between all of us that we are together in this in terms of questioning this kind of bringing the private into the public and taking the public back into the private. So I would finish with this, and like I said, we really value your solidarity from here, and we are in the solidarity with what is happening in JNU, and like I said, that is not enough. We need to be in solidarity with everything that is happening across the country. We need to be in solidarity with what is happening in the prison. I said that I can't talk about prison experience, but one thing that I would want to mention is that the kind of hierarchies, we had a very comfortable life inside the prison, and that is mostly because the same kind of social hierarchies that we see outside in the society were replicated inside the prison. So, for instance, we were all treated as this quote-unquote political prisoners, and the students and faculties who have come, and these are all learned people, etc., etc. They are part of a political movement, and that's why they are here. And other under-trial prisoners, many of whom are kids, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, and they are there in the central jail for absurd charges. There were some kids who were there for chain snatching charges, and they are there in the central jail. These kinds of kids, they were sent in the morning to clean up our rooms, to clean up our cell, to wash our vessels and so on. And we were all shocked, and then we of course prevented them from doing that, and we were doing our own things. But the thing is, one of the things, for instance, that we were told by some of these kids is that, for instance, Cheldaballi Central Prison, it has its own horticultural department, it has its own agricultural activities that are happening, and all the prisoners, they work in all these areas. So these children, they pointed to us one mango tree, and they said that we are the ones who Central Prison. And so this Dalit constable, he told me that what is happening in your university, what you are saying is happening in your university. This Kammas taking control of this. The Kammas, not just Kammas from coastal Andhra. XU is supposed to be the university that came from the Telangana movement. It's supposed to be a university for people in Telangana. And right now, the kind of attack, this Apparao is a Kamma. The registrar is a Kamma. The joint registrar who is in charge of security, he is a Kamma. Venkaiah Naidu is also a Kamma, right? So these people, so it's a Kamma attack on Hyderabad Central University. That's really happening. So this person told me that just like you're talking about this Kamma attack on your university administration, similarly our jail administration is under a Reddy attack. So the superintendent there is a Reddy. He has placed all his Reddy henchmen in the top positions in the jail, and he has transferred all the SC/ST jail administrative officers outside of Chellabal prison. I don't know where they are, but they've been transferred out of there. So he was saying that we need to fight this also. So I said that what can we do about it? He said that you can't do anything about it. We have to fight this from inside. He told me. He's just said that, but we have to do it jointly. You fight it there, we fight it here. Anyway, because these people are going to stay in power for 3 years, I'm sure that you'll come back here and you'll keep coming back here. So we'll get to talk. That's what he told me. So I'll end with this.